On today's show, we have our Houston Rockets weekly game previews for the Indiana Pacers and Boston Celtics, storylines, trends, matchups, and more. What the Pacers have learned about themselves playing this season without their star in Tyrese Haliburton, and how the Celtics have experienced so much success without their star, Jayson Tatum. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the #1 sports podcast network. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. On today's show, we have the first part of our Houston Rockets weekly game previews, taking a look at the Indiana Pacers and the Boston Celtics, what the Pacers have kind of learned about themselves without Tyrese Haliburton this season, and then how the Celtics have actually ascended to top 3 status in the Eastern Conference, despite predictions that they would really struggle this year without Jayson Tatum and a lack of front court depth. We're going to hear about Pacers and Celtics here in just a moment. First, we'll let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. And joining us now is the host of Locked On Pacers, Tony East. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Pacers. Here to preview the first game for the Rockets this week, Rockets-Pacers, Monday evening. This is the second meeting between these two teams. And Tony, let's start right there. Rockets took the first meeting, 126-119. Pacers shot 53% from 3, still lost that game. How and why?
The Rockets' identity was exactly what they thought it would be, right? I mean, Adams played in that game, but only part of it. He got hurt in the third quarter, right? And then left and didn't return in that game. But still, immediately, they've had problems with teams who are like exceptionally good on the glass on one end or the other. So the Spurs are the best defensive rebounding team and the Rockets are the best offensive rebounding team. Both of them have given the Pacers fits. Like, they just get smoked in the possession battle because don't have Tyrese Haliburton. I don't know if you don't know that. So they're not a low turnover team anymore, and they don't have great rebounding center. So it's hard for them to win the possession battle on a normal game. So when they play a team that's identity and focus is so centrally focused on forcing or not having turnovers or being great on the glass, like Houston is, they really struggle. And so even if they shoot the crap out of the ball, they still can't keep up with a good team like that.
We're going to come back to this second meeting between these two here in just a second, but with Indy kind of aggressively at the bottom of the standings in this like weird like gap year with no Tyrese Haliburton, which top prospect from this year's draft class do you think would be the best addition to this team for next season when they do get Hallie back?
You know, that's a great question because I've watched exactly 0.0 seconds of college.
Tony, I did look, timeout. Wow. From host to host, I did the rebuilding years. This is your bread and butter. What are you doing, man? You're supposed to be doing draft content back in like November.
I will do draft content on April 15th, the day after their season is over. I've obviously like caught stretches of them playing here and there. I've always thought Peterson was the best player from very far away. I think Cam Boozer's the second best player, and I'm always a draft the best guy if you have a top pick like that. But there obviously would be questions about Boozer's playing time on a team with Siakam and Obi Toppin, or Peterson's how much he would touch the ball on a team with Haliburton and Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Neesmith and Siakam. But that's like a first-year kind of question. You never know what a team's going to look like in a few years. So in terms of the best like positional fit, that's probably DeMonsa. But I think that they would just draft the best player because, I mean, like, look, TJ McConnell's their only player on their team who was on the team 5 years ago. Like, you just never know how much your team changes in 5 years. I just think you pick whoever you believe the best player is if you get that lucky with the pick, and you find a way to fit them into your team because you've been given a golden ticket to keep your window going for, hopefully, if you draft the right guy, even longer.
Philosophically, do you think the Pacers would keep the pick and draft it, or do you think there's even a remote chance that they would trade it if the right target became available?
Yeah, they'd have to certainly consider it, right? I mean, look at the East this year. You know, it's not very good. I don't think that's a secret.
Celtics are third, man. Yeah, and right. they were panned coming into the season.
Exactly. It's not a very good. The Detroit might be awesome. Like, they just look amazing. But outside of that, everybody's had a down stretch or a disappointing year, maybe except for Boston. And so Tatum, maybe he just makes them amazing next year. But, if you trade the top whatever pick and you get a stud and you have Haliburton and Siakam and that guy, like, are they just the favorites in the East again? They made every single series that Tyrese Haliburton has finished healthy, the Pacers have won that series, right? Like, they should believe in themselves to win playoff series very soon when he is back on the floor, even if he's worst post Achilles. As the Rockets are seeing, it's not a death sentence. Kevin Durant is still amazing, right? So I certainly think they'll have to talk about it and have meetings depending on who's available, but there's not that many guys that I think that would be available that they'd do it for, if that makes sense, because the cheap, great contributor, if you hit it, it just changes everything.
During your impassioned speech right there, I was just like, I wish you could have like borrowed like Nick's little like Ted Lasso believe sign, just like it's posted up right behind it. It would have been so perfect to just be able to point that and be like, the Pacers need to believe. Looking at kind of this season, right, and kind of just obviously weird, no Haliburton year, down year, all that. What have you kind of learned about this Pacers team or some of the individual players on this team without Haliburton, right? Because it's kind of like this weird, like almost experimental year, right? Where like, certain guys are getting more like on-ball reps and bigger roles and different opportunities than they otherwise would have gotten without Haliburton.
Yeah, some of it is like, for years, Rick Carlisle has always preached that the team is an ecosystem and like every part of the ecosystem is required to make them as good as they were. And sometimes you kind of roll your eyes at that and you're like, you're just gassing up the role players, right? Like we all can see what's happening, but it's true. Like, you drop one function of their team without Haliburton and they're way worse. Like, they lose Aaron Neesmith, they can't guard anything, right? They lose Andrew Nembhard for 10 games. They get 19 assists tonight, right? And obviously Siakam, without him, they're just dead on arrival every night this season. But like, so many of their good players are very good players and fit specifically the way the Pacers play. Like, I would say half to maybe more than that of their roster fit better in the Pacers and their style than they would on any other team in the league. And you really see with that kind of ecosystem how it falls apart without even just a few of those players. However, I also think that they learned that a lot of their players are in the right role. A lot of them have not been ready or have not been good, having to step up even just like half a peg or one peg in the responsibility order. Some of them have improved throughout the season, but a lot of them have been a little overwhelmed by that. That's why the record is what it is. Even within the injuries, you'd hope some of these guys could have been better, and they haven't really been ready for some of those challenges. And so that's been a big theme of their season, is like occasionally a guy pops with a bigger role on a given night, but a lot of them, the bigger role has not necessarily led to them looking just the same level of impactful over more minutes. They look worse with that kind of responsibility.
There will be no Kevin Durant for the Rockets in this game, unfortunately. He's sidelined with the left
Sad
ankle.
For me specifically, Jackson. I would like to see him play in person.
I know, you only get one chance at Kevin Durant a year right now. This is very disappointing. So hopefully not a long-term thing for KD, but it was kind of funny because, previous matchup, no Sengun, but KD. Now this matchup, no KD, but Sengun. So Pacers haven't gotten the taste of the Rockets dynamic duo yet this season, or won't get it this year at least. When you going into this game, what is the win condition for the Pacers? I know they haven't won a lot this year, but the Rockets have also unfortunately played down to their opponent quite a bit this season. So it's not just like, even if on paper, even without Kevin Durant, the Rockets should still beat the Pacers, it's not a guaranteed win. So what do the Pacers do to get the win against the Rockets?
Yeah, Pacers have won 7 of their last 12. They're playing decent of late. And I will give Rockets fans a nice, happy thing. The Pacers played down to their competition 2 years ago. Guess what? In the playoffs, every opponent's good. So they're going to be playing great when those games are important. So
what a gem for Rockets fans. Thank you.
It's true, though. I mean, like, look, you're lining up against Giannis every night. If you play down to Giannis's level, great. You'll probably win a lot of games. So yeah, their condition to beating the Rockets is their defense being stout and physical. Like, the Pacers have recently, with being mostly healthy, like they're just without Haliburton and Toppin, which is obviously a lot of talent to be missing, but no, they can at least kind of play the style you've seen the Pacers develop the last couple of years. It's fast. There's a lot of ball movement. There's a lot of player movement. It's random. They've been putting up lots of points on a lot of opponents recently. Their ability to turn that into wins has been how well they've defended, and they've gone smaller a lot, which has made their defense flimsier at times. But if they get good defensive nights from some of their wing players, it really helps them out. They changed everything in the second half of their most recent game with better defense. Unfortunately, one of their biggest kryptonites is a player like Şengün that forces them to defend in the post a lot. Pascal Siakam, you don't want to have him banging down low all night, and all of their centers are kind of poor in the post on-ball defenders, so it might be challenging for them to actually do what I'm saying. But if they can keep the Rockets out of the paint and force difficult shots, or try to force a lot of the jumpers that they like to try to force, which every team does, I think they'll have a chance, but the Rockets' style is just so challenging for the Pacers in the way they play. It's going to be tough either way.
Outside of the Sengun matchup, right? Because that could just be a nightmare mismatch that the Pacers don't really have anything for, just because Sengun is a weird kind of mismatch for a lot of players in the NBA, even teams equipped to try and deal with him. Which individual matchup do you think is going to be the most important outside of Sengun and whoever's guarding him primarily?
I'd imagine Amen Thompson's going to guard Andrew Nembhard. I bet you could speak more to that than I could. And Nembhard's balling in the year 2026. He's like 3rd or 4th in the league in assists. Like, he's diming everybody up. He's setting the offense in motion. He's getting where he wants with the ball. And the Pacers' worst games in this calendar year have been games where his water gets cut off and he's turning it over too much, or he sees a lot of pressure and can't handle it. That's a defensive matchup for the Rockets. But if Thompson and the many great things he does on the defensive end forces him into poor decisions or just prevents him from getting where he wants to go, even if he gets there eventually, but it's harder for him to do so, I think that will change the game in a dramatic way.
You've got us covered for all things Pacers over at Locked On Pacers. Tony, thanks for stopping by Locked On Rockets with me.
Always a pleasure, Jackson.
Coming up, we're going to dive into all things Boston Celtics. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And this week, Prize Picks has a special max discount for the big game live in the app right now. Drake May just needs 1 passing yard for the max discount to win. Add another player to your lineup, and if your picks hit, you can cash in. Prize Picks is super simple to use. It takes absolutely no time to get started. The whole format is clean. Pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections. It makes watching games even more fun because every drive and every stat matters. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans. You can pull up the Game Time app and pick an upcoming NBA game and have tickets within minutes. You can see the all-in price up front. That's my favorite part of using Game Time. They are fully transparent from start to finish. The price you see is the price you're going to pay. No surprise fees at checkout. They've got zone deals and last minute tickets options as well. So take the guesswork out of buying your NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Celtics, John Karalis. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Celtics. And John, this is the second meeting between the Rockets and Celtics this season. Rockets taking the first meeting, 128-101 final score. And that game happened all the way back, basically at the beginning of the season. I believe it was November 1st. I just want to know from the jump, how much has this Celtics team changed from that first meeting between these teams all the way back then?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously there's a little bit more continuity. There's, they figured out how to get past some of the things that were holding them back, and still prone to some of the problems that hurt them against the Rockets, the giving up offensive rebounds. They're still not a great defensive rebounding team, but they are a better defensive rebounding team. They are a better offensive rebounding team as well. I think they have gone through some experimentation, and now there's at least a semblance of a rotation. There's still some wild cards out there, and Joe Mazzulla will mix things up from time to time. But, the identity stuff has come together a little bit.
Now, coming into this year, right, I think that many people were expecting a significant drop-off from this Celtics team, and yet at the time of this recording, they're sitting at 31-18, third seed in the Eastern Conference. I just want to point out that back when I was still doing Locked On NBA regularly and we did our offseason power rankings, I had the Celtics slotted in at 4th best in the East, and I was ridiculed for this. I was tarred and feathered for this take, and I looked at the roster and I just like, you know what? I think Mazzulla might have a trick or two up his sleeve and be able to juice the most out of this roster, even without Tatum, even without some semblance of like front court depth, what have you. So I want to know, how have the Celtics been able to kind of have the success that they've had this season?
So it's the front office equivalent of winning all the 50-50 balls. You know, when those games come through and you're like, wow, they just got everything that could have broken their way worked. And that's kind of how it's gone for the Celtics. You start at the top of the roster in Jaylen Brown, all NBA caliber season. I mean, he's gonna be an all NBA player. It's just a matter of first or second team, I think, for him. Then you have the role players. Derek White and Peyton Pritchard have been kind of like what they expected to be, and there's a little bit of growing pains there. But Neemias Queta, the starting center, who I thought it was going to be part of the worst front court in the league. He's been good as a starter, and Luka Garza, a guy who couldn't play early, went through a bunch of DNPs, came back, and now he's a key part of the rotation. Now it's actually decent. It's not great, but it's decent, and that's better than I thought they were going to be. You get guys like Jordan Walsh, Baylor Shireman, Hugo Gonzalez, all these guys that you just weren't sure. You were like, I don't think we're going to get anything from this guy. And they've all done positive things. So how the Celtics have done this, it's just everybody has been better than expected. And then, on the court, X's and O's wise, they are the best, or one of the best offensive rebounding teams around. They just find a way to get in there and give themselves chances. That makes up for their lack of defensive rebounding. They protect the ball. They don't turn it over at all. They still shoot well. They do force turnovers. They do those little things that make up for their deficiencies. And so, Joe Mazzulla has gotten everything he can out of these guys. And yeah, it's kind of like an everything's going right sort of situation.
Minus not having Jayson Tatum available.
Well, I mean, that's been a constant, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't consider that. Like, obviously he's out with the Achilles thing, and he probably will be coming back soon. Yes, that's true. I always get some crap because I always say the Celtics have also had good injury luck, and people are like, Jayson Tatum's been out. Like, yeah, I get that. But this
notwithstanding, like on the floor,
like, you haven't lost Jaylen Brown for 2 weeks. You haven't lost Derek White for 2 weeks. Like, those things that have happened to other teams, where you're like, oh man, this important player for this team that's on the floor has missed significant. They haven't had a guy miss significant time. So knock on wood that doesn't happen. But the hope is that they continue to get that, and then that Jayson Tatum comes back.
In this upcoming matchup with the Rockets, it'll take place Wednesday night this week. We're recording this Sunday evening, so maybe some stuff happens before now and then, trade deadline stuff, what have you. But in your eyes, just looking at this matchup, the Celtics beat the Rockets if they do blank.
Well, I want to say something other than rebound, but that is the number one thing. They have to rebound. And I know Steven Adams isn't, he's done, but it's still, they
Rockets are still a handful on the glass.
You still have to rebound. Like, that's going to be the number one. You cannot give up second chances, because what ends up happening is not only do you give up the second chances, not only does that give the Rockets multiple shots per possession, it generally leads to fouls. It generally leads to putting you in the penalty, and the Celtics can't be missing, can't be losing guys. It's going to be a back-to-back, so it's already going to be kind of like fraught. So you need everybody there. So you got to find a way to keep them off the boards, give them one shot, and then get out into transition and try to pile up the points there.
Which individual matchup do you think is going to be the most important in this game?
Man, it's so hard to pick one, because the Celtics aren't like a one, like Jaylen Brown, obviously, right? Jaylen Brown Jaylen's had bad games and other guys have stepped up. So individual match, how you guard Sengun is going to be an issue. If I go anywhere, maybe I go with Queta and Sengun, because it's a unique defensive matchup for Queta. I don't like on the other end. How are they going to kind of defend the Celtics pick and rolls? And is Queta going to be able to do things like, if you blitz, is he going to be capable of short rolling and distributing? And he's going to be able to stop that stuff on the other end. So as good as Queta has been, Sengun is a kind of unique matchup. And it makes me wonder if maybe they go a different direction in defending him, and they keep Queta somehow roaming, and you go that route. But that's going to be the toughest one, I think, for the Celtics to figure out.
We've seen teams do that before with Sengun, and the Rockets is relocate the big, put him somewhere on the floor, else on the floor, let them roam off of potentially Amin Thompson. The Spurs did that recently with Wemby, and it kind of destroyed the Rockets offense. Even though you put a smaller defender on Alperen Sengun, if you have your big roaming and able to come over and help, then it kind of blows some things up.
Maybe you start, they've been starting Sam Hauser, which, Sam can handle like a matchup a little bit better than people think. I don't know if I want him on Sengun. Maybe you go with Jordan Walsh, because Jordan Walsh is his unique defender in his own right, where he's got the long arms. Maybe he can kind of poke a couple of dribbles free. Like, he's got good timing. So if Sengun is trying to kind of back down with the dribble, you can kind of poke, maybe get a steal or two there, kind of disrupt him that way. So maybe they change up their starting lineup a little bit just to kind of match up that way. It'd be interesting. If you see Jordan Walsh in the starting lineup, then I can guarantee you that's going to be their defensive approach.
Last thing I got for you here, John, it's NBA trade deadline week. Are the Celtics buyers or sellers, or standing pat at the deadline? What do you think?
I think they're going to stand pat, because Simons has been so good for them that he's no longer just like a salary dump. You're just not going to give up Simons for nothing. I think there's a world where they keep him next year, and Queta has been good enough where you're not desperate for a center this year. You can take it into the offseason. And because of the Giannis stuff has been holding things up, maybe they just stand pat now and just keep the powder dry until the summer and start making moves then. There's no rush. So I'm leaning towards maybe an ancillary move, maybe like a move on the fringes, but nothing big.
John, you're going to have us covered for all things Celtics over at Locked On Celtics. Thanks for stopping by Locked On Rockets with me, man.
Got it. Thanks, buddy.
That's going to do it for another edition of our weekly game previews here at Locked On Rockets. I want your predictions for both the Rockets Pacers game and the Rockets Celtics game in the YouTube comments. Make your predictions right now. How are the Rockets going to play against the Pacers? How are they going to play against the Celtics? Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.